What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you part 2 of our story of Baldur's Gate. So, in part 1, we successfully cleared the Nashkel mines, found out it was being caused by a man and his kobolds poisoning the iron there, and in a letter on his person, we found information that would lead us to the bandit camp he was working for, or mercenary camp might be a more accurate term, but nonetheless, we were left with one lead, and that was to find Tranzig at the Feldpost Inn in Baragost. Now, while that is certainly the most obvious lead, this can be done in two ways. In order to find the bandit camp, we can of course go talk to Tranzig, who will then, after interrogation, reveal the location of the bandit camp, and we can choose to let him live or not, and this will reveal the bandit camp on our map, allowing us to travel there, because until this, it's simply not on our map. Now, there is another option, actually. If we go to the areas of Peldvale or Larswood, which are mostly east of the Friendly Arm Inn in terms of where the maps are, it's possible to run into NPCs there that will actually let you be recruited into the bandit organization, if you will. Now, ultimately, both of these mostly play out the same way. The difference is if you go the recruitment option, not everyone in the camp is immediately hostile upon your arrival. However, you do still have to make your way to the largest tent in the bandit camp, which would be presumably where their leader is, and then there will be a fight there afterwards. The difference largely between these two options is that if you choose the recruitment option, in addition to actually, not being hostile with all of them, you'll have the opportunity to meet Tazok, the leader of the bandit or mercenary group of the Black Talons and the Chill. Now, while you can't actually kill Tazok, you can fight him as like a recruitment thing, and once he gets low enough on health, he'll walk away from the fight and you're not able to kill him. However, it is possible to pickpocket him for some great items, which is why I mentioned this. Regardless of this, whether you chose to slaughter your way through the camp after interrogating Tranzig or you went the recruitment option, eventually you'll find your way into the large bandit camp tent, which is Tazok's tent, and then there will be a fight with the enemies in there. Now, if you went the recruitment option, the fight in here does not necessarily make the camp outside hostile to you. But once this fight is over, we will be left in an empty tent with one other person, Ender Sai, and a chest right behind him. Now, if you take the time to talk to Ender Sai, he will reveal that he was actually a prisoner. He was apparently a thief of sorts, and explains that he was caught after messing with the organization, the Iron Throne. He'll go on to explain that while the mercenaries here of the Black Talon and the Chill, when they are caught, and moreover their leader, seems to encourage the idea that these people are working under the banner of a group called the Zentarum, or Zentarum, whatever it is. Now, according to Ender Sai, this is very demonstrably not true, because he knows what he's doing, and he's never messed with that group. However, the second he started stealing from the Iron Throne, he was caught and imprisoned here at this camp. It is very clear that they are nonetheless intentionally disrupting the iron supply by raiding caravans and things like that that have iron. And moreover, when they're caught, they are then shifting blame to another group. Now, right behind Ender Sai is a chest. This is actually trapped. If you open this before talking to Ender Sai, the trap will kill him if you don't disarm it. Now, the letters in the chest that we can find actually tell us quite a few things. They confirm that these people are responsible for the assassins that have been trying to kill us. However, it does not offer an explanation as to why this is. Moreover, these letters further mention that the boss of Tazok, one Devaorn, I honestly have no idea how to pronounce this dude's name, so I'm probably just going to call him Dave. Nonetheless, they are leading another operation out of the Cloakwood, which is of course going to be our next destination after this. Now, these letters also mention a person named Saravok and how he won't be happy if Tazok fails in his mission to have you and your friends killed. Now, after this, we're pretty much done with the bandit camp. After we exit the tent, at any point, once we rest, we can have another dream. It is worth mentioning, I actually didn't mention this in part 1, that these dreams can actually change slightly depending on your reputation. And if you have a reputation below, I believe it's 9, it will actually give you a different ability, whereas if you have a high reputation, it gives you a support ability. A low reputation will typically give you a damaging ability, but it does change a little bit depending on it. But here's the dream.
The night is warm and calm. It is as though someone has walked across your grave, and for a moment, you wonder if it was you. With this thought, the ground beneath you opens, and you are swept into the dark. When light returns, you do not find its presence comforting. Before you lay the empty mines of Nashkel, cleansed by your previous passage. You move through walls and floors alike, descending deeper and deeper, until a bloated figure comes into view. Mullahay, in no better shape than you left him, stands motionless before you. Held from whatever afterlife calls it, this foul apparition has been waiting for you. A dagger of bone hovers before it, ready for a willing hand to drive it deep. Had this creature breath, you were sure it would be hurling curses. It waits for the kill, a death beyond death, and knows no hope. You turn your back on the blade, and it clatters to the floor. Punishment enough shall find this creature in the land of the dead. You need not inflict any more upon him. Surprised and thankful, the visage of Mullahay hobbles forward and through you, off to whatever fate it deserves. Perhaps for safekeeping, it leaves a part of itself behind. It is a spark of hope that fills a space within you, a dagger-shaped hole you did not know was empty. There is a cry of rage from the depths, and the dagger of bone launches itself through the air, your heart its target. You awake just as it should have struck, and the cold sweat that covers you stings your eyes. A disapproving voice lingers in your ears, though it should have disappeared with the dream. You will learn.
Now, after this, we'll know that we need to head to the Cloakwood. The Cloakwood, before this, was actually completely inaccessible. Your character can't find it, much like they can't find the bandit camp. However, the easiest way to get there is from the Friendly Arm Inn. There's a good chance that when you do this, you'll run into the old man from part 1 again, that showed up almost immediately after Gorion was killed. Now, I will mention this is like a little weird because you'll suddenly know his name despite the fact that I'm pretty sure he never actually told it to you. But it shows his name is Elminster, which is important because that starts with an E, and the letter on Gorion's body was signed E. But if you talk to this old man and don't tell him to get lost, he will explain that you obviously need to go to the Cloakwood. Now, the Cloakwood itself has to be navigated map by map, which is unlike the rest of the world map, which typically allows you to exit the map from like north, south, east, or west, or whatever, and then go to the next map over that way. The Cloakwood, regardless of where you exit those maps at, it will only ever unlock the next area of the Cloakwood. You actually have to go through them in order, and eventually you'll find your way to a mine there. Now, while you're in the Cloakwood, you can have another dream, as this is technically the next chapter. Once you picked up the letters in the bandit camp, that actually ended chapter 3 and began chapter 4. So in chapter 4, we can have yet another dream. Here's that.
As darkness falls, your mind drifts back to events past, and to triumphs well-deserved indeed. A fortified camp secluded and guarded from the entire coast, and it is naught but easy pickings before your guile. All manner of bandit and brigand move about here, but you may as well be invisible amongst them. Your recollections are interrupted by a powerful gust of wind, lifting you high above the camp and woods both. Your arc crests in the high morning sun, and for a moment you are as a bird, free from your duties to those below. With unseen hands, the earth reasserts her hold on you, and suddenly you feel less like a sparrow and more like a catapult stone. Without impact or fanfare, the ground accepts your passage and does not strike back. In a moment, all is black, and for all you know, you have descended to the very core of the world. The rock around you illuminates, and a cavern slowly takes shape. Though you can see no more than a few steps ahead or behind, stumbling forward, you find yourself face to face with yourself. Before you is a likeness in stone exact to the smallest detail. A voice in the darkness accuses you, even as it seems amused. Such pride undeserved, great predator, when your whole being is borrowed. Credit where it is due, and dues where payment is demanded. A dagger of bone flies from the blackness and strikes the statue square. It cracks slightly, but the pain you feel is as though you were rent asunder. You were made as you are, taunts the voice, and you can also be broken. You fall backward into the void, and do not come to rest until morning wakes you.
And beyond that, once we get into the Cloakwood, there's a lot of side quests around here. There's an especially infamous one involving a bunch of spiders. But you'll have to go through these areas, so if you want to do these side quests at the same time, it's a good time, but they're not related to the main story, so it's not really what we're going to cover here. But eventually, you will make your way to a mine. Now, directly outside the mine, once you actually kind of enter the little enclosure that the mine is put in, you will run into a band of mercenaries that were hired specifically to kill you. They were hired to guard this mine from you, and you will have to fight them, and once that fight's over, you can eventually make your way into the mine proper. Now, on the first floor, the most notable thing is the slaves outside of a water plug, because, for starters, every person working in this mine is either working for the Iron Throne, or they are a slave being forced to work the mines. That is an important note, we'll circle back to it later. But on the first floor, we can find slaves outside of a water plug. This is a plug that keeps water from the surrounding lake from flooding the mine. There is a key to this plug. However, the slaves would like you to free the other slaves so they can leave prior to you flooding the mine. Now, reasons you would want to flood the mine are to make this mine useless to the Iron Throne. But again, we'll talk more about that later. I'm just mentioning that this is where this is, and it would allow you to disable the mine from these people who are clearly trying to kill you. Now, the second floor seems to act as a bit of a barracks for the mercenary group, as well as the prison for slaves that are put in like isolation or whatever. That prison is where you can find Rill. Rill is the leader of the slaves, and giving him 100 gold and sending him on his way allows him to bribe one of the guards, while you're distracting everyone else, to get the slaves out of the mine. If you want to save the slaves, that is how you do it. After that, you can move on to the third floor, which just has lots of enemies and lots of stuff going on, and eventually you'll make your way to the fourth floor, which is where you'll find Dave. So, this guy is a bit of a boss fight. I would tell you when you walk up to him, it's important to disarm the traps on the path to him, because 2 of them will spawn battle horrors, which are incredibly annoying. But beyond that, fight him. It's usually a kind of a waiting game for him to run out of his spells, because he has a lot of defensive spells that he'll cast constantly. But eventually he'll run out of spell slots and be forced to fight you. And once we kill him, we can find several letters on his body that do a lot of explaining. First of all, these letters are from a man named Realtar. He once again references the other person we heard of in the letters at the abandoned camp, Sarevok. Realtar is telling Dave here that Sarevok will be taking over all of the mercenary groups, and that Tazok works for Sarevok. Moreover, Realtar explains that they have set up a base for the Iron Throne in the city of Baldur's Gate. These letters also explain that the Iron Throne has infiltrated the Seven Sons merchant group. Now, I want to take this time to explain something that is easy to miss here, which can cause some confusion. These letters also explain this mine is not known to be in operation, meaning that it is not known to the city of Baldur's Gate that this mine is producing iron ore. These letters go on to explain, actually, that Tranzig, the man we met and possibly killed earlier, was sent to the Cloakwood regularly with several bags of holding to pick up the ore as one person and then transport it, theoretically, to wherever the Iron Throne is holding it. So they are stockpiling, secretly, iron ore. So to bring that full circle, this explains to us that the Iron Throne is behind sabotaging the Nashkel mine, hiring mercenaries and bandit groups to disrupt trade routes and things to create even more of an iron shortage by disrupting imports, all while secretly stockpiling iron themselves. So what we know at this point is 100% that they have artificially created this iron shortage while simultaneously hoarding iron. We also know that they've set up shop in Baldur's Gate, the actual city. And, don't forget, we know that they've recently set up an agent with the Seven Sons merchant group. So, from here, towards the back of Dave's room, we can find his apprentice, which will tell us basically all the same information we just learned from all these letters. Moreover, there is actually a lift in this back room that we can take back up to the first floor of the mine, because Dave will have had a key on him that is the key to plugging or flooding the mines. Now, to be very clear, you don't have to do this part. In fact, it doesn't really seem to have any consequences that I could tell, but if you want to, you can flood the mines. Moreover, you can make the decision to not free the slaves, and then lie to the slave guarding the plug about freeing the slaves, and kill all the slaves and everyone else left in the mine by flooding them and drowning them all. Or you can have given Rill the 100 gold he asked for earlier, which will then have escorted all the slaves out of the mine, then flood it, making the mine non-operational, thus hurting the Iron Throne as well as saving the slaves. But to be clear, the chapter ends when Dave dies. You do not have to do this flood the mines part, In fact, again, not doing it doesn't seem to have any effect at all, really.
You have dealt a great blow to the organization known as the Iron Throne, a defeat that you are certain will not be ignored. Now you must travel to the great city of Baldur's Gate, where you are certain to find the truth behind the strange plot that plagues the citizens of the Sword Coast.
And that is where we are going to leave part 2. So in this part we discovered basically the entirety of the plot by the Iron Throne, and now we need to head to the city of Baldur's Gate, which previously up to this point has been closed to us, and then we can investigate more of what's going on with this artificial iron shortage that's being caused. So with that out of the way, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. We are growing absolutely tremendously. Cannot thank you guys enough. The show of support for everything that I've been doing has just been honestly just mind-blowing. So thank you. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.